He said the car had run out of gas, his wallet was left at her place, and his phone only had 3% battery left. But when he got into the passenger seat, he said, "It's an Irish tradition for the lady of the house to manage the money. I'm just afraid you're too soft-hearted." Ella slammed on the brakes, and the tires screeched on the wet road. "So you were testing me? Testing if I'd give all my money to beggars and be unworthy of your tradition?" Suddenly, the moonlight broke through the clouds, and she caught a glimpse of the faint stitching of the Parsons family crest inside his collar. Ella slammed her calculator down on the office desk. The clatter of the plastic case against the wooden grain echoed through the empty room. The numbers on the screen were still flickering. From 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., she'd stare at the decimal points on the VAT return form until her eyes ached. The coffee machine in the pantry let out a final gurgle, as if sighing for the person working overtime. She stood up, rubbing her temples, and her fingertips brushed crumbs from the gap between the keyboard, remnants of the breakfast she'd stuffed in her pocket that morning and forgotten to eat. "Damn VAT return forms," she muttered to the empty cubicles. As she turned, she glanced at the job recruitment page in the bottom right corner of her computer. The Crawford Properties logo glowed in the blue light, as if waving at her. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from her mother. "Are you coming home for dinner tonight?" She stared at the screen, her fingers tapping the keyboard unconsciously, deleting and retyping before finally replying with 2 words, "Working overtime." Overtime again. The cleaning lady passed by pushing a mop, the orange-red cleaning bucket, leaving a wet trail on the floor. "I've never seen a department in Dublin that keeps the lights on later than your accounting team." The cuffs of the lady's gloves were frayed, and her speech carried the distinctive rolled R of an Irish accent. Suddenly, Ella thought of the soda bread her mother used to bake as a child. Warm, with the same comforting smell of daily life. She forced a smile, her fingertips hovering over the mouse, and finally clicked save. The recruitment page was still open, and the real estate agent advertisement glowed faintly in the dim light. The sky outside was already dark, and the streetlights cast the shadows of plane tree leaves onto the tax forms, twisted like a row of lopsided mathematical symbols. To the meeting the next morning, the manager tossed a stack of reports onto the table with obvious impatience. The edges of the papers sliced through the air. "The quarterly audit has been moved up. Everyone's working this weekend." Groans rippled through the colleagues. Ella sat in the back row, her fingers white-knuckling a pen. Its barrel still had a sticker from last year's company annual dinner, which had long since curled at the edges. Suddenly, she stood up, the chair legs scraping against the tile floor with a shrill sound. "I quit." The conference room fell, so silent you could hear the air conditioning hum. The manager's glasses slipped down his nose. He stared at Ella, as if she were a calculator that had suddenly miscalculated. "What did you say?" "I said, I quit." Ella placed her employee ID on the table. The metal surface reflected her red-rimmed eyes. "I don't want to spend my whole life staring at numbers." As the glass door of the HR office closed behind her, she could hear her heart thundering, like an out-of-control calculator furiously tapping away in her chest. Just then, her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number read, "Welcome to Crawford Properties. Training starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow." She stood at the elevator, laughing, and in the elevator mirror, the woman staring back finally had a spark in her eyes. The air conditioning in the training room was too cold. Ella rubbed her arms, and goosebumps prickled up her forearms. Her notebook was open in front of her, but her pen hovered over the page, and used. The short strands of hair on the back of the man in the front row were ruffled by the AC, swaying gently like a tiny grass blade. Suddenly, the man turned around and handed her a stack of materials. The cuffs of his faded white shirt were frayed, and the dial of his Casio watch was slightly scratched. "New colleague? I'm Samuel," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners first, soft, like crumpled paper. "You spilled your coffee." Ella scrambled to steady her paper cup, but the brown liquid still seeped into her new resume, the one she'd stayed up late revising the night before, in which she wore her only well-fitting suit in the photo. "Damn it," she exclaimed, dabbing at the stain with her fingertips, only making it worse. "It's fine." Samuel pulled a crumpled pack of tissues from his briefcase. A Volvo keychain clattered to the floor, the sound of metal striking tile echoing loudly in the quiet training room. Real estate agents rely on their words, not paper anyway. As he knelt down to pick up the keychain, Ella caught a glimpse of the belt peeking out from the hem of his shirt. It was a brand she didn't recognize, but it was polished to a shine. They were assigned to the same team, to canvas neighborhoods. In July, Dublin's sun blazed down, and the asphalt road burned underfoot. Samuel unbuttoned his second shirt button, revealing a faint V-shaped tan on his collarbone, as if kissed by the sun. "This townhouse," he pointed at the crack in the shop window, tapping his finger against the glass. "We need to remind the client to check the foundation. Part of it collapsed during last year's heavy rains." Ella suddenly laughed, squinting in the sunlight. "Your shirt tag's sticking out." Samuel's ears turned red. He hurried to tug at his collar, hooking his finger under the tag and yanking at it repeatedly, only to wrinkle the neckline. Ella stared at the Casio on his wrist, thinking of the Rolex watches every colleague in the accounting department used to wear, and suddenly found this man a little endearing that on the weekend, Grafton Street was packed with tourists. The jingle of ice cream trucks mixed with the strum of street musicians' guitars. Samuel bit into a hot dog, his words muffled. How's the career change? Better than staring at numbers, right? Ketchup dotted the corner of his mouth. As Ella handed him a tissue, she noticed a thin layer of calluses on his fingers, as if from years of gripping a steering wheel. It's better than staring at numbers. Ella's voice trailed off. By the sidewalk, a little girl with matted braids shook an empty potato chip can. The tin made a rattling sound. Behind her, a man held up a cardboard sign scrawled in messy handwriting, "Daughter needs chemo. Please help." The little girl's nails were caked with dirt, and she stood barefoot on the scorching pavement, mud packed under her toenails. Dad says we just need €300 more for medicine. The little girl looked up at Ella, her eyes startlingly bright, like two tiny lanterns. Samuel suddenly knelt down, his voice soft. "Little one, do you know how to get to the station?" "I'm lost." He pulled coins from his pocket and slipped them quietly into the girl's hand. The coins pressed against her palm, and she looked up at Samuel, then at Ella, before suddenly bowing. Ella emptied her wallet. Bills and coins clinked into the can. When she handed over her last €20 note, her fingertips trembled. It was the remainder of her living expenses for the month. But Samuel lifted the little girl, Liza, as she'd said, into his arms. Her small arms wrapped tightly around his neck. "I'll walk you to the station," he said. As his figure disappeared into the crowd, Ella noticed he'd left his coat on the bench. A beige trench coat, still carrying the faint scent of cedar from his skin point 2 hours later. Samuel finally returned. The back of his shirt was soaked through, clinging to his body. Ella stared at his damp back and handed him a bottle of mineral water. "Why did you help them?" "That kid." He twisted off the cap and poured water over his flushed face. Droplets rolled down his jawline and into his shirt. "She reminds me of my sister." Ella suddenly thought of the waves in Dublin Bay, cool, yet warming to the heart. They met for the third time in St. Stephen's Green. Pigeons wandered across the lawn. Samuel handed her an ice cream cone. The sweet aroma of vanilla wafted over. "I guessed you'd like this flavor." As Ella licked the melting cream, she watched him kneel down and place a newspaper over the bird droppings on the bench, his movements so natural, as if he'd done it 100 times. "Are you free on Sunday?" Samuel suddenly asked, twisting the paper wrapper of his ice cream cone between his fingers. "Brown Thomas is having a sale. Want to take a look?" Inside the window, a mannequin wore a diamond necklace. The lights hit the diamonds, dazzlingly bright. Ella pressed her finger against the glass, leaving a foggy print, and traced the outline of the necklace. "It's beautiful. Try it on." Samuel nudged her into the store. The sales clerk eagerly brought out the necklace. The silver chain settled around Ella's neck, the cold metal making her flinch. But when the clerk quoted the price, €5,000, Samuel's hand suddenly froze. His fingers tightened in his pocket. All he had left was this month's rent and gas money. The tram ride back was unnervingly quiet. The wheels clattered against the tracks. Ella twisted the new silver stud earrings she'd bought. Her first paycheck purchase, only €50. The silver glinted faintly in the light. "I could have afforded it, you know," she whispered, afraid of wounding his pride. "I know." Samuel gripped the handrail, his knuckles white. "I'm just afraid that someday." His Adam's apple bobbed, his voice soft as a feather. "I won't be able to keep up with that kind of habit." When the tram jolted to a stop, Ella nearly fell. Samuel reached out and steadied her by the waist. The warmth of his palm seeped through her shirt. But once she'd regained her balance, she pulled away. "Who said I need you to keep up? I can earn my own money." Her mother jumped when she opened the door. She stared at Ella, her eyes red, as Ella kicked off her high heels. They thudded against the hallway cabinet. "Why are you crying like this?" Ella said nothing, collapsing onto the sofa. Her phone buzzed wildly in her bag. By the time Samuel's missed calls reached 10, she finally hit answer. "I'm on the M50 motorway." His voice was mixed with the sound of wind and rain and blaring car horns. "The car's out of gas." The wail of a siren came from the background, and Ella's heart lurched. She grabbed her car keys, only to remember it was 2 a.m. The windshield wipers swiped frantically across the glass, blurring her vision. Then she saw Samuel standing on the hard shoulder, his hair plastered to his forehead, his shirt soaked through, as if he'd just climbed out of water. "I left my wallet at your place," he said as he slid into the passenger seat, bringing a puddle of water with him. The seat cover soaked through instantly. "My phone's only got 3% battery left. I can only call you." Suddenly, the moonlight broke through the clouds, falling on Samuel's face. He twisted his wet cuffs. Droplets fell from his eyelashes onto his knees, leaving small damp spots on his trousers. In Ireland, it's tradition for the lady of the house to handle the money. He turned to look at Ella, his eyes filled with a worry she couldn't decipher. I'm just scared you're too soft-hearted. You'll get hurt someday. Ella glared at him, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. So you're testing me? No. Samuel suddenly grabbed her wrist. His palm was calloused, and the rough texture tickled her skin. I was afraid I wasn't good enough for you. His thumb brushed over her wrist, where a faint scar remained, from when she'd once cut herself on a calculator while fixing a mistake. The blue lights of a police car swept across the interior of the car. Ella suddenly laughed, tears spilling down her cheeks. The rain had stopped, and the fuel gauge showed there was enough gas to get back to Dublin. The needle trembled at the 1/4 mark, just like her heartbeat. So you thought I'd give all my savings to street performers? She stared at the rain-washed motorway ahead. The sound of tires rolling through puddles felt like something being torn apart. Water still dripped from Samuel's shirt collar, pooling in a small puddle on the leather seat. That day, you gave Liza 327 euros. His voice was soft, softer than the rain. It was every penny you had in your wallet. You counted. Ella whipped her head around, yanking the steering wheel with her. The car swerved, barely missing the barrier. In the rearview mirror, the police car's blue lights still flickered, illuminating Samuel's tight-lipped expression. He reached over to steady the steering wheel. The warmth of his fingertips seeped through the leather. My mother always said kindness needs to go hand in hand with sense, he said. Raindrops shook from his hair onto the dashboard, leaving tiny wet spots. When I was little, my sister gave all her lunch money to an old woman selling matches. She fainted from hunger that afternoon. After that, I was scared that being too soft-hearted would hurt me and the people I care about. Ella slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched on the wet pavement, and the seatbelt dug into her chest. So this is how nobles raise their kids? Her voice trembled, and tears hit the steering wheel. No wonder you looked down on my silver studs. Thought I was too poor to fit your family's rules. Samuel's hand froze midair. In the distance, the red sign of a gas station blurred through the rain, like a smudge of blood. Those studs are beautiful, his Adam's apple bob, his voice hoarse. I just was scared you couldn't afford them, Ella finished for him. Her nails dug into the stitching of the leather steering wheel, and blood oozed from the gaps between her fingers. The monotonous swish of the windshield wipers suddenly reminded her of the office printer. Endless numbers, endless forms. Even in a new place, she was still trapped by money. Samuel unbuckled his seatbelt. The metal clasp clicked against the car door. In my family, he turned to Ella, rainwater dripping down his jawline into his collar, soaking the white shirt translucent. The lady of the house doesn't just manage a jewelry box. Weariness laced his voice, and a heaviness she'd never seen before. A 400-year-old estate, the books for 6 wineries. When my father died, my mother cried in her study for 3 months, not from grief, but because the holes in the accounts almost bankrupted the entire family. The rain suddenly lightened, leaving only the occasional swish of the wipers. Ella could hear her own breathing, mixed with the hum of the air conditioning vent. You thought I was the kind of person. She tightened her grip on the car keys, the metal teeth digging into her palm. Who'd bring home every stray dog, who'd give all her money to anyone who looked pitiful. Samuel grabbed his soaked coat from the back seat and pulled out a leather-bound notebook. Its pages were filled with dense numbers and red-inked annotations. Over the past 3 months, he said, his fingers trembling as he handed it to her, the profit margin for every property you handled was 15% higher than your colleagues. You added supplementary clauses to contracts, warned clients about hidden property fees, included maintenance funds and budgets. I noticed it all. Ella didn't take it. The notebook fell with a slap beside the gear shift, revealing the gilded Parsons family crest on the inner page, an eagle tangled with grapevines, a symbol she'd seen in art history textbooks, belonging to an ancient Irish noble family. You investigated me? Her voice rose sharply, startling crows from the bushes by the road. Their black wings fluttered across the roof of the car. I wanted to know. Samuel bent down to pick up the notebook. The vertebrae on the back of his neck jutted out clearly, like a row of abacus beads. If you were truly happy. The tips of his fingers brushed her calf, cold, like the tide in Dublin Bay. I was scared this was just a passing fancy for you. Scared you couldn't handle the estate's rules. And most of all, scared you'd find out I'm not just some ordinary real estate agent. I'm just an heir crushed under the weight of his family. The fuel warning light suddenly came on, glowing red in the dark, like a reminder. Ella reached for the ignition key, only to find her hand shaking violently. So what now? She stared at the bright window of the gas station convenience store, lined with snacks and drinks. Should I write your mother a financial assessment report? Let her see if this former accountant can manage her wineries and ledgers. Samuel suddenly laughed, the corners of his eyes crinkling into fine lines, like ripples in sunlight. She'd rather meet. He nodded at the ink stain on Ella's ring finger. the one she'd gotten that morning from revising a contract. The girl who turns double-entry bookkeeping into art. His thumb brushed over the ink stain, his touch as gentle as if caressing a treasure. The convenience store bell jingled as they entered. Ella watched Samuel run through the rain to the counter, his old leather shoes splashing through puddles, soaking the cuffs of his trousers. When he returned, he was carrying hot cocoa in a towel. The Volvo keychain jostled in the plastic bag, clinking against the cups. "Here," he said, handing her the towel. It smelled of camphor, as if pulled from the depths of a wardrobe, but it was clean. As Ella dried her hair, she caught a faint whiff of roses. Nothing like the cheap laundry detergent the office cleaning lady used. It was soft, subtle, and gentle. The hot cocoa was too sweet, cloyingly so. Ella sipped it slowly, watching Samuel wipe the crested notebook with a tissue. His fingertips moved carefully, as if polishing an antique. "Actually," she suddenly said, the steam from the cocoa stinging her eyes, "I minored in art history in college. I know how to authenticate oil paintings, and I've read about the Parsons family history. Does the west wing of your castle have a Rembrandt copy?" Samuel's wiping paused. The convenience store's fluorescent lights cast shadows from his eyelashes onto his face, like two small fans. In the west wing, his voice was barely audible. "There's a portrait smoked black by fire. It's my great-grandmother's. The frame got water damage during last year's rains, and we never found a good restorer." The gas pump clicked off automatically, interrupting them. Ella reached for the fuel cap, only to find Samuel grabbing the door handle at the same time. Their arms collided in the cramped car, and hot cocoa spilled onto the crested notebook. The brown liquid spread across the leather cover, like a lopsided cash flow chart. "Sorry," Ella scrambled to wipe it, her fingertips brushing the edge of the gold leaf. The leaf began to curl like a falling autumn leaf. But Samuel pressed his hand over hers. The warmth of his palm seeped through the tissue. "Doesn't it look like," he suddenly said, a smile in his eyes, "the cash flow chart you drew last time? The one with different colors for income and expenses? I thought it was more beautiful than any ledger." The rain had stopped completely. Moonlight filtered through the gaps in the clouds, illuminating the faded fountain pen handwriting on the notebook's title page. "To Samuel, may you find something more important than numbers." It was his father's handwriting, neat as print, yet soft, just like Samuel. Ella suddenly noticed the second button on his shirt was sewn with a different thread, repaired later. His Casio watch, though scratched, was always on his wrist. His Volvo seat covers were a little worn, but spotless. Just as she always left a correction column at the end of her ledgers. Just as Margaret, she'd learned his mother's name, stuck notes on medicine bottles. These signs of repair were part of life. Proof of care. Her fingers still lingered on the curling gold leaf when Samuel suddenly closed the notebook and slipped it into the inner pocket of his coat, pressing it to his chest. "Are you free tomorrow?" His voice carried the mixed scent of coffee and rain, fresh and clean. "I want to take you somewhere. I have client appointments booked until Wednesday." Ella pretended to check her phone calendar, but she couldn't hide the smile tugging at her lips. Her heart raced as his body heat drew closer. Samuel pulled a yellowed card from the inner pocket of his wet coat. The edges of the parchment were worn thin, as if touched 1,000 times. The gilded letters glimmered under the car roof light. "Parsons Castle, 10 a.m. He pressed the card into Ella's hand. The warmth of his fingertips lingered on the parchment. "My mother said she wants to meet you." "This is..." Ella stared at the grapevines tangled around the crest, suddenly recalling the description in her art history textbook. The Parsons family had made their fortune in wine. 400 years ago, they'd traded 2 ships of wool for this land, and had rooted themselves in Ireland ever since. As the engine restarted, a water droplet fell from his shoulder onto the air vent. 400 years ago, Samuel's wrist tensed as he turned the steering wheel. "My ancestor traded 2 ships of wool for this land. No one could have guessed we'd end up with 6 wineries." The tires rolled through a puddle, splattering mud onto the windshield, like an impromptu painting. The next morning, mist still hung in the air. The iron gates of the castle loomed through the fog, like a silent giant. Ella stood at the door, counting the cracks in the stone wall, 17 in total. She'd unconsciously noted the width and length of each, mentally calculating the repair budget. "The repair cost could buy half a diamond necklace," she muttered. Samuel's laughter came from behind her, cool as the morning air. "So we need a lady of the house who's good with numbers," he said, pushing open the oak door. The hinges creaked, and sunlight flooded the hallway, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. Ella sneezed, smelling mildew mixed with the scent of candle wax, the kind used in churches, solemn and dignified. Lady Margaret appeared at the top of the staircase. A pearl necklace rested against her crisp shirt collar. Each pearl was round and smooth, glowing in the sunlight. "So, this is the accountant?" Her gray-blue eyes flicked over Ella's flat shoes. She'd polished them the night before, but the leather was a little scuffed. Samuel says you can tell the difference between a Bordeaux ledger and a burgundy one. Actually, Ella ran her finger over a bulge in the wallpaper, feeling the uneven surface beneath. I'm better at spotting depreciation costs from water damage. For example, the third strip of wallpaper on the east side of the hallway has water damage covering about 2 square meters. If left unaddressed, it will corrode the walls, and repair costs will increase by 30%. She deliberately stepped on a loose floorboard, which creaked hollowly. The joists under this board need replacing too. In another 6 months, it might collapse. Margaret's lips twitched, but she didn't argue. She simply turned and walked toward the dining room. Let's have lunch first. I made Irish stew. Your favorite, Samuel said. Lunch was served in the conservatory. Sunlight streamed through the glass roof, making the silver cutlery shine. Ella counted the grape patterns on the edge of her plate. 6 in total, matching the 6 wine regions in the cellar. Burgundy, Bordeaux, Champagne, Tuscany, Napa Valley, and Kilkenny, Ireland's local region. 3 months. Margaret suddenly set down her spoon. The clink of silver against porcelain was sharp. If you can sort out the estate's accounts from the past 5 years, including the winery's income and expenses, the castle's repair budget, and those forgotten old ledgers, I'll recognize you as the mistress of the Parsons family. Samuel's head snapped up. Tomato soup splattered on his tie, the red stain spreading like a flower. Ella pulled out a tissue and pressed it to the stain, feeling his Adam's apple bob beneath her fingers. He was nervous, scared she'd refuse, scared she couldn't do it. Does that include the repair budget? She didn't stop dabbing at the spreading red stain. And those old ledgers smoked black by fire? I heard some of them are written on parchment. It also includes proving you're not. Margaret dipped a piece of bread in olive oil. A drop fell onto the stack of ledgers, leaving a transparent circle on the 1998 wine revenue sheet. Another girl dazzled by crest. She'd seen too many women eager to marry into nobility, only interested in titles and wealth, unable even to read a ledger. That night, Ella moved into the tower study. Moonlight filtered through the stained glass windows, casting blue spots on the 17th century account books. She found that Samuel's great-grandmother had corrected numbers with her eyebrow pencil. Under the 1921 whiskey income entry, 500 pounds had been crossed out and rewritten as 800 pounds. A tiny heart was drawn in the margin, with the words, "Birthday gift for Thomas." Found a treasure. Samuel appeared at the door, carrying a cup of black tea. He watched her use her phone calculator to cross-check the numbers on the parchment, her fingertips flying across the screen. The cost of repairing the East Wing in 1912. Ella held up a yellowed receipt. The paper is brittle as a potato chip. It cost 200 pounds back then. At today's exchange rate, that's enough to re-shingle the roof 3 times over. Dust dotted the tip of her nose, and her hairpin was askew. She looked a little messy, but utterly focused. The following week, heavy rains washed out the vineyard's drainage ditches. Mud flowed down the furrows into the winery's cellar, nearly flooding the newly brewed wine. Ella waded through the mud in rubber boots, her trouser cuffs soaked. The foreman complained to Margaret, "This girl can't even tell Pinot Noir from Cabernet Sauvignon. How's she supposed to manage the vineyard? But she can tell which ditches need repairing first." Ella spread out her soaked notebook. Despite the smudged ink, the pages clearly marked each field's slope angle, soil moisture level, and drainage ditch depth. The ditches on the west side have a 15-degree slope. Water flows faster, so we fix those first. The east side only has a 5-degree slope. We can wait. This way, we cut labor costs by half. When Margaret took the notebook, her ring scraped across the paper, and a flicker of approval entered her eyes.